Welcome to Turn Extension, a supplemental podcast for the Advanced Maneuvers YouTube channel.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Turn Extension. My name is Tony, or Polar Bear Cub on the forums.
Hey everybody, it's Kevin.
Hey everybody, it's Devin, Cutthroat Cure on the forums.
And today we have a super awesome guest. We have Will Hungerford from Privateer Press. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're good. I mean, I'm still alive, so that's good.
I'm having to do all of the work today and tomorrow that I will be missing when I leave for Seattle on Wednesday and come back next week, so.
I'm going to hug you so hard when I see you.
Good.
Is this fall into the category of aggressive cuddling?
No. He'll appreciate it.
I appreciate both. I appreciate both known about hugs and surprise hugs. It's all good to me.
Okay,
you
noted.
Heard it here, folks. Anybody who goes to Lock and Load, just randomly grab Devin and hug him.
Just in the middle of a tournament when he's got 30 seconds left on a death clock, just run him, start hugging him.
What could possibly go wrong?
Look at my opponent and I'll be like, hey, what can you do? You know?
Yeah.
All right, so today we've got Will on to talk about Steamroller 2017, right?
Yes. Yep. As the organized play developer at Privateer Press, a lot of my time is spent working on the game Warmachine and Hordes, along with Pagani, Oz, and Souls, and Jack and Schick. But one of my main duties is all the organized play. So from the super casual summer rampages and narrative leagues to the tournament Steamroller and Masters and everything. So that is all under my purview.
Awesome.
So, Tony, can we just dive in?
Yeah, I guess, we've got a whole list of questions. So we're just going to start just harassing you with them.
Yeah,
Let's get harassed.
I want to ask one that's kind of been sitting on the back of my mind. So Devin dragged me, and by drag me, I went willingly sort of to Lock and Load last year. And last year's Lock and Load was obviously the release of not only Steamroller 2016, but the new edition. And I remember, I think it was in maybe the keynote or something like that, where it was specifically said, we didn't do a lot of changes in SR17 because we recognize that people are going to have to get used to a new edition before we just start, lambasting them with changes to the format itself.
Yep.
The changes that came out or that's coming out with the 2017 packet, were these changes that were actually potentially have gone through on 16 but you decided to delay them, or were these things that are relatively new to 16 or to 17 and there wasn't necessarily a need for holding back? Do you still stand on the stance of we needed that 1 year of no major changes in order to get through the new edition?
Yes, yeah, that so not all of the changes that are in 2017, but a fair number of them we knew ahead of time. And it was, do these go out with the new edition? No more race to 5 CPs. Some of the more push to make assassination and attrition more viable and not just the non-interactive scenario elements. But we realized that this new Steamroller has got some massive changes, and it's a pretty big meta shakeup, and we were already doing that with the new edition. Now, there are things that are new to 2017 and definitely new because of the CID process, such as certain types of models holding certain types of zones. That was not originally planned. That happened during the course after the release of Mark III. So, but if it all happened again today, if Mark III was dropping at this Lock and Load, we would do the same, because there comes a point when you've got a game as deep and big as Warmachine, and then you've got something that can change the way you play as much as Steamroller. You don't want to flood people to where they're like, I don't even know what's going on anymore. So 2016 acted as a good constant for the variable that was Mark III for people to test against.
That's awesome. Yeah, I thought it was really cool, and I have to definitely applaud Privateer Press on that, because I remember when we were in Seattle last year and the announcement was made that not many changes were going to be made to keep it, as familiar, so that we could focus more on the new rules instead of trying to learn a whole new packet. I appreciate it personally, mainly because as a very major TO, it kept my printing to a minimum. So that was definitely my work thanks you.
Yeah, and for guys like you that do any sort of judging, it'd have been even harder, like having to do judge calls on a new edition and then all this new steamroller stuff. It had been too much.
Do you think that there are concerns, or there's even a percentile chance that people are still not ready for a major overhaul because they're still not 100% comfortable with this new edition, even after a year of its release?
So there may be people like that. I think overall the majority, we're all good to go. TOs, players, and us at Privateer Press. I think anyone at this point that might be overwhelmed by the change and the change of the new edition, maybe you shouldn't start at Steamroller. That's why there's so many different formats available. Maybe they should work into that and start at a journeyman or something where they can ease up. But I think anyone who's sort of even a novice tournament player on up is going to be able to handle these changes pretty easily.
Oh, that makes sense.
So on our list of questions, the one I'm going to ask is, when Steamroller 17 went into the CID, there was a substantial backlash to the proposed changes to include what we would call one of the most arguably controversial rules in all of it, the Mercy 6 points to win.
Sure.
You mentioned in your Insider article that you're taming them down to 5. Can you step us through the process of what changed from the CID process to what is going to be coming out next weekend?
Sure. Regarding specifically the 5 CPs versus 6 CPs?
Yeah, like how did that step process go of, like, where do you determine, okay, this makes sense, like what the community's providing really does make sense, and how do you go through that internal play testing and everything and get such a quick turnaround decision on that?
Sure. So what we know is with CID, we have our intent, what our goals are, and we stated those kind of pretty clearly, right? That the idea was from basically Steamroller 13 through 16, Race to 5 had become one of the major ways to play, and it led to some very uninteractive gameplay where you could get jammed out, the feet could get popped, and you could lose a game before you ever had a chance to actually make any meaningful decisions. So we had to kill that. And in doing so, we wanted to keep scenario viable, but bring up the potential of just straight attrition play and make assassination be a thing. You know, at high-level tournament play, assassination is usually one of the worst options. You don't see it, but at the core of Warmachine and Hordes, killing the caster is sort of one of the things. Like, if someone doesn't play tournaments or doesn't care about them, if someone says, what makes Warmachine and Hordes unique? One of the first things people are going to bring up is, if you kill their caster, you win the entire game, no matter how far you are behind. And so we had to bring that back up. So we started with the getting rid of the caps. There was no more of the race. It was you had to beat your opponent by a certain amount. And 6 was sort of where we initially settled, because we felt that scenario victories at that point were the minority. Turns out they were a little bit too far in the minority. And the way we found this out was through the sheer amount of feedback and data we get on the CID forums, listening to people's battle reports, or I should say reading them. Then there's the type form where people fill out and they send us sort of their ratings on things and provide feedback. And that's not visible to everyone else. Everyone can only see what they see on the forums. One thing is that type form, that little feedback form you fill out that it takes you through. We get a ton of feedback through that. And I think part of that is some people necessarily aren't comfortable saying their opinion in public. Some people want to provide their opinion discreetly and say what they want. And we get a lot of really good feedback that way. So we listened to what everyone was saying, and we were looking at, we had achieved our goal, but we had overachieved it, was basically what we were seeing from people. And some people in the feedback form said, we tried it at 5, or if it had been 5, our game would have ended this way. And a lot of really good battle reports will say, your rules are this way, and this is what happened. We noticed that if this had changed or this had changed, this would have been the outcome. And so we started testing that internally, because everything we're getting in CID, we are constantly testing internally as well. It's not like we just make changes and then throw them out there for everyone else to test. It's being done in-house as well. And the 5 felt really good, but there was something still a little bit missing, which is where the suggestions about solos being on flags and not in zones came in. And when we combined those two, it kind of became peanut butter and jelly. We realized that taking solos out of circular zones, but allowing them to do flags combined with a 5 CP hit the sweet spot of what we were trying to do. So the race to 5 is dead, but now a straight scenario victory is not going to be the majority, but it's far more viable than it used to be. And so to answer your question directly, It's an organic process that comes from listening to the community, their suggestions, testing them out ourselves, and then sometimes going, yeah, this works, or sometimes going, that's not really what we want.
So I guess there's this concept, this growing perception that people think that if a minority rages hard enough, PP is going to go and change a role in CID.
Nope.
I mean, do you think this has any basis at all?
No. We know that there, certain voices are loud, and sometimes a voice can yell so much louder over a crowd that people think that's what the crowd's saying. We take a very measured view of all the feedback. What we receive through that form that no one else sees, and also what we've seen publicly on the forums, as well as, Pagani and I get endless private messages on Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that. We listen to everybody, and no, if the majority is saying one thing and then a really loud group of, like 5 or 6 people are yelling one thing, we're going to listen to the whole of everyone. Now, that doesn't mean that just because you're loud, you get ignored. We listen to good points. If someone provides us something in a constructive manner, whether it's praise or criticism, and makes their points in a good, logical manner, and usually has data to back it up, even if that data is anecdotal, like saying, I played these 5 battle reports, here were my results, that's a small sample size, but you're showing your work. We'll listen. But no, there is no, anyone who knows the Privateer crew knows that we're not going to cave to pressure effectively, because then we're going to make a change that might make 5 people happy, but then anger 50 people, and that's just not good for the health of the game or the community.
That's good. And I honestly think that's something that the community really needs to hear and understand, that, yes, there are the people who scream the loudest, but it's a difference between 2 people screaming the loudest and 100 people screaming the loudest. Obviously, 100 people are going to get attention, but you still have to back it up by facts. That's one of the things about the CID that's been a constant, is don't go out screaming, go out screaming with facts.
Hold on, I do have one small little follow-up to that. So you brought up, like on Facebook, stuff like that. A lot of people tag you and Pagani in posts. Yep. How does that work with you guys when have you seen that big of a change since the forum has kind of changed a little bit? You guys are getting tagged constantly now?
Since the main forums changed? Yeah. Definitely more for Pagani because he got hired here. I would say there's definitely been an increase in the amount of stuff we're being tagged in, but it's hard to say, man, because sometimes we get tagged in stuff where it's just like, hey, thing related to Warmachine and Hordes, and then sometimes it's somebody in the community tagging us with something insane, right? Like, I found a picture of somebody in a bee suit, check it out. So I would say that, the community is a lot more involved and connected on social media these days, and so, I couldn't quantify the number for you, but it definitely feels like more. But it's not a problem, right?
Okay.
Like me and Pagani both came from the community. I was a press ganger along with Ed Burrell back in Baton Rouge before we both came to work for the company. And Pagani ran a store in Houston forever, which was one of the biggest Warmachine stores in the area. So we both came from this, the community, so we're still deeply attached to it. So when people tag us, we're always joking with people and having a good time, so it doesn't bother us at all.
So earlier you mentioned about the concept of throwing solos in that had to in order to score on flags instead of sitting on zones. Yep. In 2017, that concept of type model A is required to score in the location or scenario B. Which honestly, that we don't see that often in other miniature games. It's kind of a refreshing new experience that that a lot of people are going to have to deal with in 2017. But was there a developmental design to go that direction? Because a lot of people are going, oh, well, this is PP's way of trying to bring all-comer balance into lists because you can't get away with just spamming things. Is that really the initiation of this, you need X model to score X scenario, or is there something else involved in there?
No, it was an intentional design that realizes the strength of certain types of spam lists, and to say that those lists will remain strong, but in the organized play, there is a risk in playing them. You can still play a scenario. If you spam all of one type of thing and you don't have scoring elements, then your goal is to simply try to contest, stop your opponent from winning on scenario, and then win via the attrition and or assassination game. Making somebody who does bring a diverse list with a wide variety of models being able to have a stronger chance at winning via scenario was very much intentional. It was just not, I guess it was, I don't like to look at it as a punishment of the spam lists, more as a benefit for people that aren't playing spam lists. To give them a reason to go, why would I bring a take all comers when I might run into a hard skew? And here's your answer. If you don't want to go hard skew and you want to bring a very balanced list, you will have, knowing that the scenarios are going to be random, you will have a much better chance typically of winning via scenario.
Yeah, and I guess to some extent you're not necessarily saying you have to, because ideally if I'm like, I love spamming jacks, that's my favorite thing, I can do that. I just have to recognize that I'm going to be encountering hurdles in scoring scenario by making that choice.
Absolutely. I mean, your caster can always score, and I'm sure you're going to have a couple support solos to jump on some flags, or maybe a unit of mechanics to jump in a zone. And at that point, you have to change your play style to simply be, well, my goal is to contest. My goal is to contest and then grind them down until they can't stop me from letting my caster sit in a zone or on a flag for a couple turns and winning out that way. So just, it's a mentality shift.
So ideally recognizing that anything can change in the future, is your current gut that this type of scenario scoring requirements of models is something that we're going to see in future SR packets?
I would imagine so, unless we find out through, I mean, the CID process gave us a lot of good feedback, and I think a lot of people looked at the early version and they're like, oh man, I don't like 2017. And then by the end of it, they're like, oh, this is way better. And that's one of the things to remember about CID is it's a process, right? Like don't let there be a bad taste in your mouth from the beginning, because it might change to what you want in the end. So I think we're going to be with this style for a while, because that's what the feedback towards the end was indicating, is that people were very happy with what was going on. And then after the Insider came out announcing the 5 CP and the solo changes, we got a lot of feedback saying people were super happy about that. But we're also not stubborn. So if 6 months from now we have 6 months worth of tournament data globally, and we find out that there are certain things not working in SR 2017, or if it's catastrophically bad, which fingers crossed it's not, we're willing to change whatever we need to change for the health of the tournament scene.
So you'd be willing to do a dynamic update on SR17?
If there was something so bad it was blue screening the game, like if A, there was just a busted interaction, or B, we got a few major tournaments in and people were like, yeah, like the tournament scene is in jeopardy. The health of the tournament scene is poor because of this document, then we are going to do what we have to do. I don't see that, because the CID process helped us to avoid, gave us all the information we needed and showed us what the major pitfalls were. So I have a hard time imagining a world where that does occur. But yeah, man, we like our game and we like it when people play our game. So if something happened where people weren't playing our game, we would try and fix it.
That's interesting. I just never thought that would be a thing. That's actually very cool.
Yeah. I mean, I could see it happening on smaller things. Like if we put out an objective that had an ability and we didn't realize it blew the world up for somehow, right? I could see that being a change. But as for like a major design shift in terms of like the way the CPs work and everything, that'd be hard, but nothing's off the table.
So let me ask a question then. So after we saw your Insider, there was a couple of different updates than what we saw the final version of 2017. Are you concerned that anything else that you might have added after the 2017 CID, that something could be broken in the future, or the changes relatively minor?
No, the changes were relatively minor. I mean, Recon 2 and Outlast got updates.
Okay.
But they were fairly minor, and we've tested them pretty heavily. The 5CP and the solo thing, we tested a lot internally, and those actually came, like, again, we had the data before those even became official, because people were already suggesting that and already doing it.
Okay.
So, no, most of the changes that occurred after the fact are small enough that I think they're significant. Mainly the 5CP to win and the solo change, those are the two most significant. Anything else in the doc is less significant. So I'm not terribly worried now.
All right, so one of the things I definitely wanted to ask is, has there been any discussion around the Privateer Press offices about changing the size and shape of the zones we currently use in the Steamroller? Changing the zones could have implications on third-party zone manufacturers, and the players have already spent money on the ones they currently have. But a case could be made for the change to prevent visual/zone mechanic stagnation.
So the answer to that question is any discussions that have ever come up have been basically me saying, no, we're not changing these for the reasons you stated. Too many people have invested in them. They've been used for too long. If anything, and this is not on the plans, if we felt there was a stagnation occurring because of the zone types we were using, we would simply add another one. We would not remove one and replace. We would add an additional because those zones are not cheap. I know there are EOs that have spent hundreds of dollars to be able to run, 16, 32, 64-person tournaments, and that would not be cool. And it's working. We don't really have a major reason to fix it, but if there is in the future, I'd rather add like a beast-shaped zone or like a starfish-shaped zone than, in addition to circular and rectangle, than take one of those away. Because, what good would it really do us to take one away and not just create something new to add into the mix?
I'd like to propose an H-shaped zone for the Hungerford effect.
I think that's a little too egomaniacal for me. They'd probably shut me down.
I mean, you could have an H zone next to an O zone. So
no, you have to do a bunch of like leopard print like spots that you just set down all over the board and then they move randomly.
I dig that. Or maybe like a cutout of Pagani's face, making that like giant smiley face he makes.
I mean, Muse on Minis loves to make custom zones, so
yeah.
Just think if you had a Privateer Press logo zone.
The shape of the logo?
Yeah, that'd be huge.
That would be awesome. You'd only have to get like small bases in the crossbones and get your huge bases in the middle.
Yeah. And you can the entire board actually gets smaller and smaller until you're only in the Privateer Press zone because you're either in the game or you're not. You're talking about, so I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but there's a recommendation that comes up every now and then. I swear I hear it at least once or twice a year where someone's like, can Killbox shrink? Like people always bring that up. Like, could Killbox just keep shrinking? And so like every turn it gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until like it's just like a 12 by 12 in the middle of the board is the only area you can stand in. And I'm like, oh no.
That sounds rough. That just sounds awful.
That's really punishing, and it's also an extra thing to track in the game, in a game that already has a lot to track. So
I can barely remember when the kill box is a normal size.
I would like a 4x4 kill box.
I think it's cool for like a narrative scenario. I could see a scenario where like, I don't know, you've got like a wildfire surrounding you and it's closing in or something like that. But in terms of like steamroller, it's probably a little too much.
Hey, so I got a question with terrain. So we're starting to see with the new rules, you have a lot of terrain on the table now, and also with structures, we're starting to see like blockhouse. It's a structure. It stands still. Do you think there's going to be any concern that there might be like a terrain bloat happening within SR?
If anyone thinks there's going to be a terrain bloat problem, I will just simply inform them that I respectfully disagree. There has been far too long where people have played with very barren tables with giant killing fields in the middle of the field where the terrain was pushed off to the sides and the corners and it wasn't relevant. And it's not really why we play miniatures games. Part of playing a miniature game is A, badass looking miniatures, and B, you're playing on a dynamic table that you get to set up using terrain that has an effect on the board. I think the battlefield you play on is as important as the models you bring, and it's been neglected by some for too long. So I would add more terrain if I could, and if I felt it was still a good game experience. I actually think 8 is the sweet spot, and that includes being able to bring a structure. And I had structures in mind when I set the new limit to 6 to 8 with the recommendation of 8 being how much you bring. So no, the new line of sight, the requirements for line of sight blocking, the new terrain deployment methods that end up with line of sight blocking stuff in the middle of the table, that is all very intentional, and that is so you play a game where the decisions of your positioning and what terrain features you're going to avoid and which ones you're going to utilize means something, not just, well, here's the wall my caster's going to hide behind, and here's this hill in the corner my Eris is going to stand on, and then everything else doesn't matter. Like, there's no point in that.
Awesome. I guess, so how'd you guys even come up with the whole idea of doing the different terrain deployments? Like,
Hold on
I
one
really like
sec.
the scatter one.
I want to note something that my meta definitely got super, super angry at Privateer Press when they found out that I got to put even more terrain down on the board because I love terrain and I always go with the absolute high rank. So once we start getting into 9 pieces, people are looking at the tables where there's acid pools everywhere. They were just like, damn you, Privateer Press, damn you.
To be fair, you run tournaments where a model is incapable of moving 6 inches without stepping into an acid pool. So,
Well, that's EO preference. That means, if you can't walk 6 inches without catching corrosion, that might be a little rough. That means the board is basically nothing but acid. Is that even possible? I guess it is possible.
One time.
With Devin, it's possible.
But what was the question you just asked me prior to that?
No, I was just wondering, how'd you guys come up with the concept of like the scattered terrain, like deployment stuff like that? Was that taken from other concepts or just something you guys were kicking around the office?
So what that literally was I had been hearing a lot of feedback from EOs. Some EOs have it covered, right? Some EOs don't need any guidance at all. They can make a great table. And then some, especially newer ones, were like, they were asking for like maps with preset terrain or terrain guidelines, different things like that, where they wanted some assistance on how to put this terrain down to make it meaningful. Because prior it was a little vague, right? It was just like, make it balanced. If you have this stuff on this side, try and have these kind of things on this other side, but there wasn't really anything to it. So what I did is I codified my personal 3 ways I put down terrain. So whenever I'm setting up at a show or whenever I'm playing at my house, those are how I make terrain. And I just, I'd never had like a set of guidelines. It was just 3 different ways I like to do things. And I was like, okay, well, let me sit down and actually write these out as rules. If I was going to create a rule book and tell someone, here's how you do it this way, do it. And that's what we did. And we gave it to everyone and they tested it. And people seemed to really, really like it. So we were like, cool, let's stick with it.
So is the SR pack written as those are suggestions on deployment or requirements on deployment?
Everything in Steamroller is a guideline. Everything. Every rule in there can be altered by the EO. In fact, I made sure the final version explicitly stated that. So if you're going by the strictest writing of Steamroller, as in you are not changing anything, then the requirement is that you should use those 3 methods and you should mix them up as you see fit across your tables. You should not do every table with the same method. You should just mix and match as you see fit. That said, the Privateer Press organized play police are not going to come to your event and slap you on the wrist if you can set up good tables and don't have any problems. Real time, I would say to look at it is if you're trying to do your own thing and maybe you get a couple complaints where people were concerned about your terrain, not saying you have to copy those guidelines, but maybe look at them and to get some ideas of the kind of tables they're creating. Use them a couple times to create a couple tables and see how they change things and see what people like about it and what people don't, and then do your own thing. So I recommend using them, but I'm biased.
All right, so I guess the next question then is it's in with community and theme forces. So the community seems to be really divided on theme forces and their potential imbalance of games between a theme list and a non-theme list. Is there going to be a variant that tournament organizers can use to delimit the use of theme forces?
Officially, no.
Okay.
Now, if people want to do their own thing, again, people are welcome to do whatever they want to. Theme forces, they are a foundation building block of Army list construction in Mark III. They are core to the overall concept. Doesn't mean you have to use them, but they are a very, very important building block piece. So will we ever officially put out a thing that says the theme forces are restricted? My answer is going to be no, but I will also realize that we have said no, or we would never do certain things in the past, and then they've happened. Mm-hmm. So I will be cognizant of that fact. So the answer for now is never.
Okay, I'm good with that.
So Champions is an ever-evolving tournament format that kind of took over where Hardcore used to be. Can you step us through the changes this year with Champions, and what is the design goal of Champions in 2017?
Sure. Champions and Masters' main goal was they were just brought in line with Steamroller 2017. So they received all the same sort of changes that Steamroller got. Basically, Steamroller happens first, and then Masters and Champions are built off of them. Masters and Champions didn't the ADR works the same as it did in the previous year, where in Masters it is optional. In Champions, it is required. If you do it in Masters, you get the Vanguard Specialist bonus. In Champions, you don't. There are the various prizes you can win in Champions that are similar to the old Hardcore. So anyone who's familiar with those things are used to them. Obviously, the ADR switch. The big change with those two is sort of what they mean now, because the Iron Gauntlet format is going like as its own separate rule set, is ceasing to exist after the finals at Lock and Load this year. Iron Gauntlet is becoming the Iron Gauntlet World Tournament Circuit, which effectively is every approved Masters and Champions in the globe earns qualifier points. First place is 10, second is 7, third is 4th, if I remember correctly. So it's only first, second, third earn points. If you have 10 points or more, you are automatically approved to come play in the World Finals at the Lock and Load, so you'll know way in advance if you're making it or not. We will probably do a last chance qualifier at Lock and Load next year. That's not confirmed, but I would imagine we could. And then, so the cap won't be 16 people anymore. And then every year, the format of the World Finals will change between Masters and Champions. And we'll swap between those two. So that was their big change this year. We've got some stuff in the pipes for Champions, especially, that I can't really talk about just yet. But right now, we've introduced Champions as our first ever limited format, right? Because you're limited to only what's on the ADR. I could see that going further, and Masters being the unlimited and Champions being the very limited. And I'll leave it at that.
I wanted to talk a little bit about so you've given us a lot of information about SR17, and I definitely appreciate that, but I'd like to spend a little bit of time on the community end of things.
Yeah.
So with the departure of the Privateer Press program, several of the communities are obviously feeling strain when it comes to like organizing and running tournaments. And I think there are elements of the SR packet that are definitely going to enhance that with, just about anybody can just take the packet and set up terrain and run tournaments and stuff like that. But is Privateer Press looking into how to like help these suffering communities to empower them, empower themselves? Are we entering an era where self-empowerment really drives the community, or is it more of a Privateer Press will pick up the role of the leader of the community again? Like, how do these straining communities survive in which is being exposed as a depleting meta?
It's both. It is self-empowerment, and the thing is, we've anybody can do it. It's anybody who wants to pick up one of these and start running it. But then, where do they get the motivation to do that? Is where they get the encouragement and the support. So it's twofold. Privateer Press isn't going to step into someone's meta and declare someone the EO and say that this person's running it. But what we will do is, whether it's a store owner contacting our retail support program and like talking to them about what they can do, or just people talking to myself or Pagani or whomever, asking advice or different things they can try. We're here to support everyone and give them whatever they need, whether it's answering questions, and also we're just including new and different types of prizes that a lot of them we recommend in the prize kits, that you give whoever's running the event, that they give that to the EO. So we want people to walk away with cool stuff as sort of running events. If you've done it, it's a lot of work. There doesn't necessarily need to be a cool thing at the end of it, because a lot of people run events for the sake of doing it for the community, but it's nice to walk away with something cool. So we're making sure to add more and more of that kind of stuff in the prize kits. But it's two ways to answer the question. There need to be self-starters. There need to be people that have that drive and that desire, who want to run events at their store, and then they should know that they can come to us, whatever their specific needs are. We'll get them in touch with the right person, and we'll help them out. And this is, a wide variety of things. Like, if somebody was running a food machine and they were like, we need something special because we're giving prizes away to charity, they could reach out to us, and we could see about getting the staff to sign a book or something, right? Maybe grab a couple models and send them over and be like, here's some cool stuff to raffle away for your charity. If a store contacted us and said, I need help with having my staff run steamrollers and they've got these questions, the staff could be put directly in touch with me. Like, we do a lot of this kind of email every day. So the takeaway from this, I would say, is if you're interested, or you have questions, or you're in a meta that you feel is diminishing and you're looking for help, reach out to us. email us. If you don't even just email the customer service, which is like frontdesk@privateerpress.com. They'll get you in touch with the right person.
Anyway.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute my Skype. So I'm too busy. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit distracted. I'm reading through this troll CID, and I'm trying to keep my pants on, so I'm just a little bit distracted.
I'm not saying I'm trolling you guys. I'm not saying I'm trolling you guys specifically, but I am saying I did schedule this right as the troll CID went up.
Oh my God, it's so good. I'm so happy. So
you specifically sabotaged this because you knew 1/3 of the cast was not going to be paying attention the entire time.
Didn't say I did it on purpose, but I totally did it on purpose.
Nice. So my question was, so this is something I definitely noticed from both of when I was a press ganger and now currently as I run events. So DoU has been a super valuable tool as long as I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm noticing more and more that being able to bring a laptop or have a computer available at a specific store is becoming increasingly harder, especially with people going more mobile. So other game systems have tournament reporting programs that allow people to use smartphones or tablets to report their games and run their pairings. Something like Best Coast Pairing. It has Privateer Press looked into working maybe more with Tinker House or War Room to address a pairing system that is in the app, because I definitely personally have noticed that using a laptop or getting a hold of a computer to run DoU has been harder. So I've been doing a lot of the roll a die, this is where we're going.
Sure, yeah. The answer to that one, and this one has to remain a little bit vague, is that is something that is a trend we are aware of. It is not something that we're blind to, and we've definitely looked at different things, considered different options, and talked about a lot of different possibilities. As for where we are in the progress of anything like that happening, I can't say. So just know that we know that event organizer need exists. We're not turning a blind eye to it, and whenever there's something to announce, we'll announce it.
Awesome. Yeah, because I know a lot of gaming systems that do that, and to Devin's point, like Best Coast pairings for other gaming systems, it's almost designed to a point where you don't even really need an EO. You just need somebody to hit the start button on the app, and then it just kind of does it itself, which I'm sure for most EOs would be a utopian, standpoint for them to be like, I push a button, I'm going to go take a break for the next 4 hours.
Sure.
So I want to talk about something that I'm super excited about, and most of these guys are going to be rolling their eyes here in a minute, but Company of Iron.
Yeah.
A lot of people are getting excited about Company of Iron.
They are. The response has been phenomenal.
Well, and I think it's something where a lot of the community has, whether they realize it or not, has been kind of looking for that warband skirmish level of Warmachine and Hordes. A lot of people start the game and they're like, I'm going to do a battle box game or something like that, and you get that small feeling. But then slowly but surely over time, because you would fall in love with your army or you fall in love with the game, you get more and more and more models on the table that old feeling of I've only got these 4 or 5 models to play with is lost, and I think that definitely provides a more narrative feel to it. It allows the community to play faster games, play a little bit more narrative to their games. Is there ever going to be a potential of a Company of Iron tournament format?
Officially, no. Okay. Now, if people want to run tournaments for Company of Iron themselves, they're more than welcome to. But that was a decision we made early on, that we would not put out a tournament document for Company of Iron. All of the support for it via organized play and via supplements or anything, other products that would come out down the road, would all be narrative. Because that's kind of, we have our big tournament game, which is Warmachine and Hordes. And I'm sure people are going to run Company of Iron tournaments, right? There's nothing stopping them. They're totally allowed to. But that's not really where we envision that game going.
But you are going to be putting them in the seasonal leagues, Company and Iron scenarios?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of stuff with them, both in the there'll be leagues that are, Company of Iron specific. Sometimes there'll be mixed Warmachine and Hordes and Company of Iron. Like, Company of Iron is not a one-shot where it comes out, it's a rule set, you play with it, and then, that was a cool thing we can throw down every now and then. Company of is going to be an ongoing supported product. And when it's not tournament play, when it's not tournament legal, it allows us to do really cool things. So, for example, if we did a limited league for Warmachine and Hordes and we made a special model that had rules and it was only available in that league, and that was the only way you could ever get it, and it was Steamroller legal, that would probably be a problem, right? Because people would have an issue with that down the road when they couldn't get it anymore. With Company of Iron, if we keep everything narrative, if we keep everything casual, then we can have events, special events. Maybe you come to Lock and Load, maybe you play in a league at a store, whatever it is, where we give you like foil commander cards that are unique, and then because there's no tournament OP, you just play that with your friends if they agree or not, right? Like, it's a thing that you have just for all your games. And I think that's cool, and it gives some value to some of the cards and the prizes you can go pick up at these Company of Iron events.
That's awesome.
So you just said Company of Iron. Are you saying that there's going to be just Company of Iron only leagues?
It is very, very possible, yeah. We've got a lot of organized play. Like, our schedule for this year is almost an event every single month. The first one you see is going to be mixed Warmachine and Horde and Company of Iron. But if we had a month where we wanted to do a strict Company of Iron event, we absolutely would, and there's a very good possibility that's going to happen. Once Unbound comes out, I'm telling you guys now, I don't have a design doc for it, it's just in my brain, so you were getting this like fresh out of my brain. I want to do something where it's Company of Iron, Warmachine, and Unbound, and like they all connect in some way, where you can play at any of the levels, and maybe like your Company of Iron is them trying to sabotage something, which then affects your Warmachine game, which then affects your Unbound game. I'll figure it out. But like, I want to have a little mini campaign that links the three styles of play together.
That sounds awesome.
I was going to say, that sounds legit.
Especially the new Unbound. I know a lot of people have their feelings about Unbound from Mark II, and I can tell you guys when the new Unbound comes out in No Quarter Prime, the new Unbound is super smooth. Like, it is a way to play with a lot of models and the game to not take a very long time or to be clunky or anything weird. Like, it is a very streamlined way of playing the game that still limits those whole, like, wombo combo 3 feet on top of each other, I auto-win. Like, it makes balance, but it plays so much smoother. I'm actually really excited for both Company of Iron and Unbound to come out, because I think we're at the point where people need new avenues to play. Like, we've got Warmachine and Hordes, and we love it, and it's awesome, and it's great, and we can always play that anytime we want to, but it's cool to breathe new life into your models via alternative play styles. So I'm super excited about those two.
So do we have a date when Unbound's going to be out?
I believe it's coming out in the No Quarter Prime, the
very first one?
No Quarter. So yeah, that should be, if it's not the first one, which is in September, then it should definitely be in the second one, which would likely be November. So if you don't see it by the end of this year, I would be shocked. Like, you can quote me at 99% chance you see it by the end of this year.
That's awesome. Hey, I do have one question. So this is about the Longest Night League. So you guys put one out way back in the beginning of Mark II.
Yeah.
Word on the street is there might be a new one coming out this year?
Oh, there absolutely is.
Do you got any, is this a new scenario, any updated rules, anything you could tell us about it?
Sure. So I can tell you a couple things. So first off, we've restructured a lot of the casual organized play. One of the things is previously let me just give you a quick overview and then I'll go into Longest Night. Previously, there was the narrative leagues that had the different seasons, like Crossroads Season 1, 2, 3, 4. It was a big year-long thing. Mm-hmm. We're doing away with that style. There will still be leagues, but they're all self-contained. You don't have to have played in a previous one to know anything about the next one. I mean, sometimes there'll be like cameos and Easter eggs and stuff like that if you read the fluff, but all the leagues are totally self-contained. So every month there's a new organized play event, and it's either a self-contained league or it's a single-day/weekend-long event. And that just makes things a little bit more digestible and lets people always have a good jumping on point. One thing we want to do is have regular seasonal organized play. So stuff you're going to see every single year. Like you see a new Steamroller every single year. You see a new Journeyman every single year. So you're always going to see a Summer Rampage. You're always going to see a Longest Night. And I don't even know if these words have been said publicly, but you're always going to see a Winter Rampage.
Nice.
And so Longest Night will always be our big Halloween event. It will always be casual. It'll have new scenarios / new game modes or different things to play. It's also going to be very inclusive of people that are not Warmachine players. That's something I've started writing into a lot of these casual events. For example, when the Grimkin release event goes live, people are going to notice it has an entire social deception game in it that shares no rules with Warmachine and Hordes. It's for basically the friends and the family of the Warmachine and Hordes players to have something to do. So Longest Night has like costume contests and bringing candy and stuff like that. It is a Halloween event. Your Warmachine players, you know, have cool scenarios, cool rules, cool things to do. Some of the scenarios are more serious. Some of the scenarios are literally like using candy on the board as tokens that you get to allocate and people get to eat them. So some are goofy and fun. And then you can bring your kids or your significant other or your friends and like throw a costume contest, whether you want to cosplay as Warmachine players or dress up as whatever. So it's all about the spirit of the holiday and getting people in the store.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know, but we actually on Advanced Maneuvers, when we do our battle reports for the year, one of the things that literally happens every year we've been running battle reports is we always do a Halloween Longest Night scenario game as our Halloween battle report. And I legit, when I heard that there's going to be new Longest Night, I was excited at the opportunity that we get to continue the tradition of an annual Longest Night, but not necessarily playing the 2-tent scenario this year.
No, 2-tents doesn't exist anymore. There's going to be different scenarios. Like I mentioned, there's some of them are more serious, and they're supposed to be more like in setting Longest Night, kind of stuff. And then some of them are lighthearted and just for fun. One of the ones in the new Longest Night, I won't go through all the different mechanics and everything, but one of the main mechanics in that one is you bring snacks to the table, and it's something that you would be willing to eat. And every turn you can allocate 3 treats, as in literally take a piece of candy and put it next to a model. And it's got to be a model that can have any kind of token. So corpse token, soul token, focus token, fury token, whatever you want. You can put out 3 of these, and they count as a token that breaks the maximum of whatever that model is. But whenever you use them, you have to eat them. And whatever you don't use, you give to your opponent, and they get to use those when they allocate their 3 as well. So it's super silly. It allows for super busted combos, and it's supposed to be something you play real fast in 30 minutes and have fun and eat some candy. And then you go back and play the serious scenarios. So it's going to be a cool mix of just laughs and good times, and then like, oh, this is like Longest Night, like, devilish evil coming out, and we've got to fight it.
That's awesome.
So I know we only have you for like another minute or two at most, but one question I had was, when are we going to see the rules for Steamroller 2017? Is that going to be this weekend, or is it going to be next week?
The Monday after Lock and Load. It is the 17th.
All right.
So yes, this is going to go up after they've already received the Steamroller pack.
No, it should be before. This is going up tomorrow.
Sweet.
Sweet.
Yeah. So yeah, it should go up the Monday the 17th, and then I believe that Wednesday-ish. So if it's not Wednesday, if it's like a day after, please don't hurt me. The War Room update that adds the Steamroller objectives should occur right around then.
Awesome.
So I know it's going to be a little too early because No Quarter Prime isn't necessarily going to be coming anytime soon. But is No Quarter Prime going to be the way in which we get the leagues and the new SR and all that, or will it continue to be kind of that print out PDF?
It'll still be the print out PDF. Now we'll still have articles and things in No Quarter Prime talking about it and really going into depth. And also No Quarter Prime has a lot of its own materials. Myself and Oz and Pagani have been writing like historical linked scenario campaigns and little mini scenarios and all kinds of different things for the No Quarter Prime. So while it's not a specific organized play event, if you are looking for some cool narrative play, like there's going to be a lot of it coming in there that's just run it with you and your friends however you want to.
Awesome.
I know that we're absolutely running out of time, and I appreciate all the time you gave, but I have a very important question that I need to ask, and I feel like I missed an opportunity if I didn't ask it.
Yeah.
Why do you continue to spread the lies that Minions is a real faction? Because they're not.
Really?
Yeah.
Minions is one of the realest factions. Everyone knows, I read these people on the internet saying like, what's the best faction and what should I play if I start this faction or whatever? It's Minions. I'm solving the debate right now. It's Minions. The answer is very specifically Rask. There's really almost no reason to play anything else in the game. And I think when people start to hear about some of the cool new stuff Minions have coming up in the future, they'll understand. So I mean, if people want to disagree, everyone's entitled to their wrong opinion. I'm not gonna really, not gonna jump down your throat if you're like, I like other factions, yay! But just know in your heart and know in your brain and know in your soul that you're wrong and minions are the best.
I mean, honestly, any faction that requires Will Hungerford to dress up like a gator and jump on the table to represent the god of Barnabas, that's not really a faction.
There are so many things I want to say about that right now, but I can't. I have to wait.
So, my final question, just because, and it'll be super quick since we're talking about minions. Now that we've heard that there will be a faction or sub-faction each year, can you confirm that we will be seeing a B pact this year for minions?
Dude, if I could make that happen, if I could add a giant B faction into minions, if you think I could just flip a switch and do that, it happened 2 years ago. They won't let me. They won't let me add the crazy B faction yet.
I mean, we've already got the B god suit.
How hard would it be to add, oh, and suddenly in the Rulik Mountains there was a giant honeycomb cavern cistern, and oh, crap, bee people. It's right there, right?
Yeah. Just super easy. You should just do it, right? I mean, who's going to stop you?
Matt Wilson, Jason Souls, Willis Dick.
I mean, it's
people like you.
That's true, yeah. But all right, guys, so I guess it's about time to wrap up. Will, thank you so much for hanging out with us for the last hour and talking to us.
Absolutely, man. It's been a treat. And I can't wait to see some of you at Lock and Load here in a couple days. And I look forward to are you guys going to be at Gen Con too?
No.
Oh, man.
At least I won't be. Is Devin?
I haven't seen Tony in forever.
Dude, I know. My wife won't let me. I'm trying to go to Gen Con next year. We'll see.
I was going to say, Will, if it's any consolation, we live only a state away, and we don't even see Tony in forever.
I think about it.
Tony is basically just a figment of our imagination. We've assumed the only time we saw him was during the Grimkin CID, and we believe that there's some sort of play with him being some sort of a fairy tale.
I gotcha. So, well, I hope to see you guys again soon then, if nothing else. Maybe Gen Con 2018.
That would be awesome. That's my goal. 2018, I'm going to try to go.
Cool.
You got to come to Nova, Will.
If I can make it out, man, if I'm not already going to another show, I absolutely would. But
if you make it to Nova, I will come down.
All right.
I will drive down, and we will drink, and it'll be great. And I will moon somebody.
Jesus.
All right, guys. I'm going to go jump on this live stream for the Northkin CID. It's been awesome talking to y'all, okay?
Have a good night.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.